Acceptance. Diversity is acceptance.
Diversity is life.
Diversity is understanding.
Diversity is priceless.
Acceptance.
All people working together.
Infinite.
Unity. Most definitely unity.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Uncomfortable Conversations That Ignite Change. The dialogue continues. My name is Reed DeSpigelaire, and I am a DLA board member and one of the co-chairs of our annual DLA conference, which many of you have probably attended. Our executive director, Joanna Deshay, had a conflict this morning, so I have the great pleasure of serving in her stead as your moderator today. Our 2021 dialogue series was designed as a community space where all of its members could listen and learn. Each webinar is designed as a safe space and place to have difficult but meaningful, open, and honest conversations that can become turning points and actionable items to ignite change. Our desire is for people to walk away transformed and feeling like they have some additional tools that they can use to begin to ask important questions that get to the root of insidious nature of racism, inequity, and those that plague our various systems. By having these meaningful dialogues with corporate, community, and nonprofit members such as yourselves, we hope to eliminate some of the racist thoughts, behaviors, and actions, and encourage advocacy and social justice for all. So let us begin. Today's webinar, Food Apartheid, is related to how hunger and food insecurity affects us all. But before we begin today's program, Brent will remind us all of how our community space and engagement rules apply to this webinar and all of our dialogues series. Brent?
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm going to share my screen here. And as many of you know, we like to remind everyone of our duty here at DLA to keep this space safe, positive, and productive. We're going to make sure that we are listening actively and being open, right, to the full spectrum of all different types of perspectives. We want to commit to foster greater empathy. We're going to try to relinquish the need to be right. We're going to ask questions and seek clarification for understanding. And I posted in the chat, we're going to use our Q&A for any questions you have, and please feel free to chat amongst yourselves in the chat there. Be respectful to the presenter and the other attendees. No one or two individuals should dominate a discussion. Approach each other with kindness and love. And then as a community space, we reserve the right to remove you from the discussion if it becomes disruptive. We also have a warm welcome to our ASL, American Sign Language Translation, which is being provided by Equal Access Services. And our interpreters today are Nicole Pacino and Jen Key. And again, a very big special thank you to Dave Wollenhop and his amazing team for their continued support and partnership.
Thank you, Brent. This is dialogue number 6 in our series around the important topic of food insecurity and how many during the pandemic were experiencing it to different degrees. Did you know that in the city of Phoenix, 42.5% of people live in a food desert? This means that nearly half of all people living in Phoenix in these 43 food desert areas do not have access to healthy food due to lack of healthy food outlets, lack of reliable transportation, income, and general time. The coronavirus pandemic exacerbated the reality for those already suffering, and many experienced uncertainty about where their next meal was coming from for the first time due to the pandemic. In this eye-opening webinar, you will hear from advocates working in government, education, grassroots organizations, restaurants, and food producers about the state of our local food system, the effects of the pandemic, and how collaboration among unlikely partners is making progress towards a more sustainable, equitable, and resilient food system. You will also learn actions you can take today in order to help promote food equity in your own communities. And I would like to personally say this issue is important to me, as my career started at the front lines of education in the classroom, where I taught in a Title I district with 100% breakfast and lunch meals for the kids. And I learned how food insecurity can prevent learning. If you're hungry in your body, you can't feed your mind, you can't access resources. And it goes beyond just kids in elementary schools that I encountered, but their families as well. So I am personally very excited to hear from our panel and moderate this discussion, as I've seen these issues and how it can affect kids, teachers, and others throughout the community. So I would like to now introduce you to two dynamic presenters who will be guiding us through today's food insecurity conversation. They will introduce you to a community panel who will be sharing their stories and experiences around hunger and food equity. Roseanne Albright is an environmental programs coordinator for the City of Phoenix, City Manager's Office of Environmental Programs, and she's been with the city for 20 years. Her responsibilities include management of air quality, brownfields redevelopment, food systems, and sustainable purchasing programs. She developed the Phoenix Food Systems Program and is implementing the 2025 Phoenix Food Action Plan to achieve a healthy, sustainable, equitable, and thriving local food system with healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food for all. Thank you, Roseanne, for being with us today. I'd also like to introduce you to Dr. Shelly Dennis. She's a faculty chair of Health Sciences and Sustainability at Rio Salado College in Tempe, right here in Arizona. Dr. Dennis earned her medical degree at University of Illinois in Chicago, where she witnessed the public health impacts of food system disparities. Intrigued by the theological implications of systemic inequalities, she went on to earn her doctorate from Drew University. Her transdisciplinary approach integrates political, philosophical, and theological thought in support of a more just and sustainable social practice around food. Very excited to have you, Dr. Shelly Dennis. Distinguished guests of our call today, a warm and gracious DLA welcome to Dr. Shelly Dennis.
Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and start the screen share. My name is Shelly Dennis, and as Reed said, I'm the faculty chair of Health Sciences and Sustainability at Rio Salado College. I want to give my deep gratitude to Diversity Leadership Alliance for making this uncomfortable conversation possible, and thanks to all of you who showed up to get this conversation started. And this is a huge topic, and we're barely going to scrape the tip of this iceberg. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, this is sort of an overview of where we're going to go today, and it's a pretty packed agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And the first thing I want to say is that the COVID pandemic called a lot of attention to the inequalities in our food system and our healthcare systems, but these have been longstanding problems. They've been around since we've had a food system and a healthcare system. So what I'd like to do right now is speak from my own lived experience and the things I observed back in the day. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, I worked and went to medical school and did my residency in Chicago's Near West Side. For a year or two, I really couldn't afford enough to eat, and I didn't have a car. I got around on CTA buses and trains and on my own 2 feet. The produce was kind of iffy at grocery stores I could get to on the buses, trains, or my own 2 feet. And while I was shopping, I took a moment to notice who was in the store with me, mostly people of color or less well-off white folks. Once I had a car, I drove away from the bus line so I could get to a grocery store with better food. I noticed who was there too, mostly middle class or higher, mostly white. A couple of years after I got that car and started shopping somewhere else, I was pregnant with my first child. My doctor told me to take 1 milligram of folic acid daily to prevent spina bifida, a condition in which the developing neural tube fails to close. Neural tube closes within 28 days of conception. So overall, that's a tiny amount of folic acid, about 15% of a single tablet of ibuprofen, spread out over 28 days. It blew my mind that this teeny tiny amount of anything could make a visible difference in the development of the nervous system. You could see it with your eyes. I couldn't help but wonder about the invisible impact of malnutrition on my patients, most of whom were on welfare and food stamps. I knew they lived in neighborhoods just like the ones I had been doing my shopping in before I got a car. So I knew they didn't have much access to healthy, appealing produce or fresh food. It seemed to me that my patients might have been hobbled coming out of the gate by poor nutrition. I started wondering what role poor nutrition might play in the cycle of poverty. And given who I saw being most affected by all of this, I couldn't help but wonder what role racism played in who had access to what sorts of fresh food. So I'm going to pause here and ask, what would you imagine are the health problems caused by living in a food desert? And just take a moment to respond to that poll. And let me know what you think are the health problems that are increased by living in a food desert.
And Shelly, we have answers coming in, just so
I
you
bet.
know.
Wonderful, yeah.
We're about halfway through. So let's get all our answers in and then we'll end the poll and share. Oh, we stalled at 2/3. Come on, folks.
Okay, go ahead and click a response. I'm curious to see what you all think can living in a food desert does to a person's body.
All right, we're going to end the poll here. And here we are with our shared result. It's very interesting how it's divided up. Shelly, what do you think about this?
You know, I think overall it means that we have a very savvy group of attendees today. You are all almost 100% correct. Actually, all of these problems are increased by living in a food desert. Living in a food desert and the problems of hunger affect all of the body's systems, increasing the rates of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and learning problems. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and move on to our next slide. As it turns out that people living in a neighborhood described as a food desert don't only suffer from lack of fresh food. They also have an overabundance of access to fast food and other calorically dense, but not necessarily vitamin-packed food. We used to call that junk food. We're moving away from that term. There's also less opportunity for exercise because there are fewer outdoor or indoor recreation areas. As you might imagine, obesity is one of the health problems people suffer when they can't get healthy food, but they can get fast food. They also suffer from micronutrient deficiencies. Micronutrients are things like vitamins and minerals that your body needs only in teeny tiny small amounts, things like folic acid. In other words, although these people might be overweight, they are driven to eat more by the fact that their body perceives itself to be starving, and it's telling them to get more nutrients in the old-fashioned way, eat. The World Health Organization refers to this as the double burden of malnutrition, and it's becoming a problem worldwide as our global economy forces a trend toward industrial agriculture. The problem with industrial agriculture is that the food it provides is less nutritious due to the selection of fast-growing or large varieties that cannot absorb soil nutrients as quickly as they can grow. And the soil is depleted of micronutrients to begin with. Add to that the fact that micronutrients degrade as the food is processed or travels along supply chains, and you can see where even the fresh food people are eating in food deserts may not be providing what we think it is. As a result of lacking access to fresh food and eating fresh food that doesn't contain vitamins and minerals it should, people in food deserts are more likely to develop metabolic syndrome, characterized by obesity, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, and elevated cholesterol, all of which makes cardiovascular disease and diabetes more prevalent in food deserts. Also, kind of speaking back to my earlier concern about the invisible impact of inadequate nutrition on the developing brain, studies also show that learning problems are more prevalent in children growing up in food deserts. The USDA has been calling these areas food deserts. The helpful thing about this term is that it has given researchers a way to investigate the exact questions I wondered about back in the early 90s. And so far, we've been talking about the effects of food desert, but what do we know about the causes? Now, please bear with me. To unpack the situation a bit, I'm going to have a few polling questions before I start to answer that question. First of all, what do you think about the causes of food deserts? We have the first question here. You just want to hop on and let me know why you think there are so many fast food restaurants in poor neighborhoods. I mean, we live in a market economy and people have choice. That might be playing a role.
All right, answers are starting to come in. Oh, this is very interesting from what I know from talking with you.
Yeah. You get to see. Are you seeing interesting things?
I am. I'm going to say we've got some smart people out there.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
You are not tricking them.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm super happy to hear that. I'm wondering how many people were guessing at the right answer or how many people knew this to begin with.
I don't know, but here's the results for you to talk about. And hey, if you were guessing or you knew, put it in the chat.
Yeah, I would love to know. I'm really curious about that. So we're often told that in a market economy, retailers give the people what they want. And poor people want fast food. People of color want fast food. And that's what we're told. And so that's why there are so many fast food restaurants in poor, low income, or minority areas. But as it turns out, in the early 1970s, the Small Business Administration, for a variety of reasons, some of which were well-intentioned, favored the development of franchises. Let's hop on to that second question. You all have had a minute to think about this, so let's see what you're thinking here.
Wait, give me just 1 second to get that launched. There we go. Gotta love Zoom technology and launching.
Yeah. So I used to work at Trader Joe's while I was back in graduate school, and we did so much with packaging our spoils for the food bank. And that was a job that some of my colleagues really hated because the food you had to sort through and take the rotten food and throw it away. And you had to take the still usable food and package it into a box that would be donated to a food bank. And I felt so grateful to be able to do that job. And I just enjoyed being a part of feeding people. So it was a pretty precious moment for me. How are we doing on responses, Brent?
They're coming in. We're going to give it about 10 more seconds, and then I will end the poll and you can launch into the answers.
Yeah, and we also know what redlining is, about who we're going to sell property to, right?
We have a little bit of difference here. So why don't you let us know what these mean to you?
Oh my gosh. Well, what this means to me is we're really not sure. It's a new term for people, supermarket redlining. And some people sort of understand what redlining is. And I started distracting people with my chitter chat about donating spoiled food to food banks, which was intentional because I'm sneaky. And really what supermarket redlining is it's when supermarkets locate their stores based on there are stereotypes about race, income, and neighborhood reputation. There are certain neighborhoods they just don't want to be seen in. So now let's talk about food deserts. And could we go ahead and get our polling question available? Because I'm curious, what images and emotions come to mind when you just think of a desert? Not a food desert specifically, but a desert. What does the term desert mean to you?
Give me just 1 second, folks. We're actually going to give you a Mentimeter. We're going to do a word cloud, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that it works. So if you can click on that link to our first Mentimeter of the day, we have lots of interaction here this morning. Let's see. I had to reload, so maybe it's not working. Can someone give me a sign if they were able to get into the Mentimeter?
Okay, so some people are getting in and some people are just responding in chat. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this desert Southwest landscape that we all, many of us are living in is just beautiful. So we can sort of look out the window or think about a morning commute and have an image of what a desert is. And I don't know if everybody has had an opportunity to travel through the Navajo Nation, but Monument Valley is stunning. It is a stunning and beautiful area of desert.
All right, so I've shared our screen, Shelly, so about some of the answers that we're getting about what is a desert.
So I would like to know if some of you could be willing to also put a word or two in about what you think causes a desert. And you could use words like natural or man-made. How do deserts get to be here? And I'm just really curious. I'd like to see where that pops up in our Mentimeter word cloud. Whether we just think this is sort of a natural thing that happens, or it's man-made. Do we have control? Can we make rain happen in the desert? Natural. I'm seeing the word natural coming up now. Yeah. I'm seeing nature. I'm seeing beauty. I'm seeing dry and empty and hot and dead. So I'm seeing some words that really, really align with what a food desert is. It's a little dead. It's empty. There's no vegetation. I'm seeing words that don't really align with what a desert is, or with a food desert in particular. A food desert is not about beauty. It is not about nature. It is definitely about something else. So let's take a moment. Thank you so much, by the way, for participating in this word cloud. We have one more for you.
And while we, sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say, while we're switching to that one, which takes me just a moment, everyone. I wanted to bring up something that's in the chat. I wanted to point out, and I would like your thought about this. Diane Chapman wrote, if you think of the Dust Bowl in the 1930s, humans can have a profound impact. Can you talk about that a little bit while I change our tech up?
Yeah, actually, humans do have a profound impact on ecosystems around us. And that's a very important thing to recognize, is that the things we do affect the natural world. The natural world also affects us and our bodies. We are made by and within nature, and nature is made by us as well. We are not apart from nature. We are a part of it.
Awesome. All right,
so it's
everybody.
A very important thing to note.
All right, everybody. We have our second Mentimeter link in our chat.
And I'm going to let you all see this question. And I'd just like to take a moment to reflect on the words and emotions that come to mind when you hear the word apartheid. And what images or visual images do you get? How would you describe it?
Answers are coming in. Thank you, everybody.
Is this a natural thing? Is this a man-made thing? Is this an accident? Or is this about decisions?
And here's what we have coming up.
Wow, this is great. So we hear that apartheid does have a sort of association with a specific area of the world. We're hearing that it's unnatural. We're hearing that it's violent. We're hearing that it's planned. It's about inhumanity to others. It's about separation. It's about hurt. People are hurt by this. There's an element of force. It's a rights issue. It's a rights issue. It's dehumanizing. It's about inhumanity to others. I see poor decisions on here. I know poor decisions, but not on the part of the people who are suffering. So thank you all for participating in that. And I'm going to share my screen again. When we use a term like food desert, we actually start to think that this condition is naturally occurring. We are distracted from the many layers of decisions that get made. So this is reinforced by the media. We tend to blame poor people and people of color for this situation. There is a tendency to think that poor people, and especially poor people of color, eat more fast food and fewer vegetables simply out of personal choice. But history shows us another story. It turns out that supermarket redlining beginning in at least the 1970s, as well as policies and practices of the Small Business Administration, created the situation of people living closer to a fast food restaurant than they do a supermarket. This didn't result from personal choice, but from large-scale corporate and government policies. Some of these policies, like the Small Business Administration policies, even had good intentions. And I do want to say that even though this situation did not emerge from personal choice, it produces a context within which personal choices are limited and in turn made. Now, these policies on the part of governments trying to economically invigorate an area may have had good intentions. The supermarket policies about redlining, some of those were definitely racist. Some of those were allegedly about economic decisions, if you believe that. And that depends on who's writing the article. But regardless of their good intentions, what they didn't have was input by the people affected by those decisions. And that, as it turns out, is crucial to making a food system or any other system that benefits the people involved. And it is especially crucial that you all here today know that there is something you can do to make things better. So now that I'm done with my bit, I would like to get us closer to finding out what those things are. I'm going to turn the screen over to Roseanne Albright from the City of Phoenix City Manager's Office. She's been spearheading an amazing years-long project, and I'm so excited for you to hear what she's been a part of. And I'm hoping that you will be as inspired as I am and roll up your shirt sleeves and get in there. Thank you all so much for hearing me today. I am deeply moved to be a part of this conversation.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here, and thanks to Shelly for really setting the stage for me and doing a lot of the hard work in initiating this conversation about what is, in my mind, not a difficult topic, but one that we should all be aware of, and we should start to think about how we can help each other. And in the end, we also help ourselves as well. So I am going to share my screen. Give me a moment. All right, so what I want to do this morning is to take it from recognizing all of the challenges that we have, and we just heard Shelly articulate, to really talk about what we can do to move forward and create the sustainable, healthy, equitable, thriving local food system that the city has committed to do. We've established this goal in our 2050 sustainability goals, and certainly we always want to do it quicker than 2050. And it's also established in our comprehensive general plan, which is usually just a land use plan, but they've really been changing. And so healthy food is part of that plan as well. And as we talked about earlier, we're just giving you a snippet of the entire food system and the entire workings of it. But what I want to make sure that you're aware of as we tackle these challenges, we really have to think of it from every aspect, from growing to processing, distribution. How does food get to places? Who's eating it? Where are they eating it? And what do we do with our food waste? And how can we minimize food loss? So we're going to talk about a little bit about food production, and we're going to talk about some of the programs and initiatives that the City of Phoenix has going forward. So before we start talking, we do have one poll that I'll ask Brett to put up as we get started. So really, we wanted to understand how everyone is shopping. Have you thought about where your food comes from? Does it come from the grocery store all the time? Do all of you maybe shop from a farmer's market or directly from your local farmer? So we wanted to know, how many times in a year do you buy from your local farmer? And if you could share that with us. We
Right.
found that in the pandemic, certainly a lot of things changed and people started to seek local food out much more. I'm hoping that that continues.
And answers are coming in. We're just going to give it a few more seconds, Roseanne, and then I will share with you. All right, we're going to end the poll, and here's our results. What do you think about these results? Is this what you've experienced?
This is what I expected, because we do know that even for folks that are aware of farmers markets, for example, they may not shop there very often for a variety of reasons. It could be location, it could be access, being able to get there at the times that they're open. And a lot of times we hear about the cost, because when you're purchasing locally, a lot of our local farmers do a fantastic job. They are organic, no pesticides, using wonderful products. And it's just, we as a society have not recognized the value in the great produce that comes out right from our own area. The nutritional value, Shelly talked a lot about nutrition, the nutritional value of the local product, the taste. If you go to a local farm, last year before the pandemic, I was able to visit Pinnacle Farms, which is in South Phoenix, and I had a chance to pick up a few items from her. In addition to, she has eggs, has chickens that are free-range chickens, and I could not believe when I got home how delicious those eggs were, and I've never turned back. I cannot buy a regular old dozen carton of eggs from the grocery store anymore. I have to have those fresh eggs. So there's lots of benefits there. So thank you.
Roseanne, I want to jump in really quickly here for a second, because Marianne made up a really good point. We forgot an answer on our poll. 0, not at all.
Yes, we did. We did.
So there's a lot of people out there.
I'm actually glad I didn't see that, because then that would have made me really sad. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, we'll increase that, whether it's 0 or 1, to more than that.
I think that's a great goal. Maybe that's a first action somebody could take.
That's right. That's right. All right. So I want to share with you a little bit about what we have as far as our local farmers. So Brett, should I be able to continue with my presentation?
Yeah, you should be good to go.
It should be moving forward. There it goes. All right, so I wanted to share with you that in Maricopa County, which we consider our local food system, so if you're in the city of Phoenix, in the Valley, we really consider the entire of Maricopa County part of our local food system. We also get a lot of products from Pinal County as well. So there's a lot of contribution to our economy from the agricultural sector. 4.3 billion in 2019, 13,000 jobs, direct jobs working on farms, ranches, etc. 11,000 indirect jobs as well. So there's a lot that gets contributed. We have in Maricopa County alone, our vegetable production ranks 20th in the nation, and we're second out of the 10 most populous counties in the US as well for vegetable production. And in the Phoenix area, there are over 2,600 farms, $2.1 billion of products sold. So we have a lot of capacity here within our region and do a pretty good job. As far as the kinds of farms that are in the area, I would be surprised if you all knew that there were over 1,000 farms in the greater Phoenix area. When I learned that statistic, I was pretty shocked myself, and I've lived here for over 20 years, and I didn't even recognize that. We have a lot that is harvested and produced. And what I wanted to make note of with this farmer demographic was really to let you know that our farmers have been farming for a really long time. They've been doing a great job. They know how to adapt to our climate, to our seasons, to our temperatures, to all of the things happening. We also know that they are getting a little bit older. Our average age of our typical farmer is 59. So we really have a desire to get younger folks into this career and recognize it as a career as well. And the majority of farmers are white and non-Hispanic. So we have a lot of new farmers that are coming in that are of color, and we hope to see that increase as well. So I know we've had a lot of discussion about food deserts and what they are, and I just wanted to show you a map. If you're living in Phoenix, in the blue colored areas are where the food deserts are. So these, again, are places where people don't have easy access to healthy food. There may be lots of fast food restaurants, but there's not healthy food, whether at a supermarket, at a farmer's market, at a convenience store that might have healthy food. And as you can see, the majority are located in South Phoenix, West Phoenix, Central area, and then there's a few spots up north as well. So I just wanted to give you a picture to see how, when you see it visually, it really is kind of shocking how many there are throughout the city. So in order to start moving toward achieving our goal of healthy food for all, we started about 2-year process to create a food action plan that would start moving us toward that 2050 goal. And because 2050 is such a long way away, and this is the first time the city of Phoenix has gotten involved this deeply in food systems, we really decided let's focus on the first 5 years and what we can do to set a really good foundation for the next iteration and keep moving forward. So in the food action plan, I'm not going to go into great detail, but I just wanted to share with you that it's there. It's on our website at phoenix.gov. We have 5 goals, 19 strategies, 51 actions, and we're measuring all of this with specific performance indicators. What I'm really proud of that we did with this plan, and Shelly had mentioned earlier that talking to people most impacted by whatever issue that you're tackling is really important. So we reached out to those folks that are most impacted and most vulnerable to food insecurity and hunger. And we established, with the help of a local consultant, a community of practice, a food community of practice, where we brought people in living in the South Phoenix and West Phoenix area together to really share with us their lived experience. Tell us what your challenges are. Tell us what you need. Tell us how we can move forward and start to establish relationships and trust between our community that we serve and institutions like the city of Phoenix. So one of the things that I really liked about this is that we were able to have some really free and open dialogue and bring not only the city together, but also other institutions like Valley of the Sun United Way, the Maricopa County Food Coalition, Maricopa County Health Improvement Partnership, and others that came to join us. We also had food justice training for both South Phoenix and Maryvale community as well. So we really got an eyeful and an earful on what this situation is all about and how we can continue to move forward. And that community of practice still exists. We still reach out to each other and we are still able to share our knowledge. And as a matter of fact, one of the members of our community of practice is one of our panel members today as well. So you'll be able to hear from her experience. Just to give you a quick idea of the goals that we have in the plan, Healthy Food for All, really recognizing that everyone has the right to healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food. We want to recognize that whether you're growing food in your own backyard or for business, that it's a valuable contribution to our economy. We want to celebrate local agriculture. We want to make sure that our local food producers have the opportunity to do best practices and have regenerative agriculture and healthy soils and continue to produce food for us. We want to maintain a sustainable environment where we can tackle food waste. How can we minimize it? And how can we tackle food loss? Food that is still edible, can we get it to people in need? And then lastly, we wanted to develop a resilient food system for the future. As I mentioned, there are 51 actions. I just wanted to point out a couple of the highlights that we're working on. And in particular, in the center, in the blue box, we're talking about something that the city can affect directly, and that is the update of codes and ordinances so that we eliminate barriers and we really encourage a healthy food infrastructure, whether it's growing food, distribution, processing, composting, all of those components. What we learned is that our zoning code system is kind of complicated. No big surprise, zoning is complicated, but we wanted to make sure that anything pertaining to food is easy to understand and people know exactly what needs to be done. So we're working on that right now. And one of the things that we're going to be doing that we expected we would do maybe in 2022 is this research policies and actions that plan for a resilient food system. But then we thought, okay, it's probably going to be things like drought, water issues, it's going to be heat. We know our city is growing and more people are coming here. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to be tackling. But no, instead, our first shock to our system was the pandemic. We know that in March of last year, there were empty grocery store shelves. There were all kinds of things happening within our food system. And we know that there were definitely effects felt far and wide. So I want to have Brett bring up the next poll that we have, if you would, please. So as we heard a little earlier, Reed mentioned that we know during the pandemic, we had people experiencing food insecurity that may have never had that experience before. And we also know that those that were already having challenges, it became even a greater challenge. So we just want you to think about what was the percentage increase in food insecurity rates in Arizona due to COVID-19? So what might you think that be? Was it a little bit, under 10%, 10 to 20%, 20 to 30%, or more than 30%? I'd love to hear what you guys think. It's a pretty astute audience, so I'm going to guess you all might guess correctly.
I don't know if this audience is going to be guessing correctly. I think they know. We're going to give it just another couple of seconds. All right, closing out. And what do you think about these answers?
Yes, I thought they might guess correctly. You are right. It was about 30% statewide. And this was in a study that ASU did in the fall winter of 2020. And they really found that particularly for folks that were already experiencing food insecurity at higher rates, those folks living in food desert, low income areas, it was even worse for them. And particularly people of color were also experiencing those at even a higher rate. So again, we wanted to emphasize that those that are already impacted were impacted even more, which is not good. So how did we, as the City of Phoenix, start to think about that issue? So one of the things that we started to do was really create opportunities to provide emergency food assistance. In 2020, the need was great. We need to get food to people that have no other resources. So as a City of Phoenix, we allocated a part of our CARES Act coronavirus funding for emergency food assistance. Food banks, food pantries were packed. They were doing a great job. One of the things we saw as an opportunity, not only the city, but in working with all of our stakeholders, is that there was already work going on by nonprofits and grassroots and community organizations to serve their neighborhoods in a very hyper-local way. We also knew that our farmers had product that were able to get it anywhere because restaurants were closed. We also knew restaurants were closed, but they had the capacity to prepare meals. How do we put all of this together? So we ended up creating, out of that funding for emergency food assistance, we carved out $2.6 million to create newer, innovative kind of programs that would still provide food assistance and at the same time shore up our food system. So I'm just going to walk you through these two programs. One was Feed Phoenix that was administered by Local First Arizona. And what we really did was focus on local products, local restaurants, and providing meals for COVID impacted families. So what we did is we purchased local produce from 12 farms. A food hub was used in between to pick that produce up from the farms and to deliver it to 45 restaurants and caterers who use that produce in meals that were prepared on a weekly basis. And we snuck in there a little bit of sustainability and required that those meals be delivered in compostable and recyclable containers. And then they were delivered to 29 social service organizations located within the city of Phoenix. So we really started to think about creating this community food network. And the outcomes of this is that now farmers are more connected to our local restaurants. Our local restaurants now love the local produce that they're able to purchase, and they're staying connected. We also heard from the recipients of the meals that they were able to experience different types of food and restaurants that they may not have been aware of. And it was delicious and healthy because that was one of the requirements that we had, is they had to meet certain health standards as well. So as a result, in about a 7-month period, we had to operate really quickly. We delivered 80,000 meals to impacted families and individuals. We also delivered about 5,500 CSA boxes, or community supported agriculture, fresh produce only, as well, to these 29 organizations. So again, just a few pictures of the food. It was really wonderful looking. People enjoyed it. Our seniors were served primarily. Over 65% of the meals went to seniors, and those were delivered to them directly. We also served our unsheltered folks as well. So it was a really great opportunity to get all of those pieces together. And we got some pretty good press on it as well. I love these two headlines. Phoenix didn't just feed the hungry, it saved farms and restaurants. And we got some press as well with regards to how we were really creating this local food system despite this pandemic. Under the Funds to Feed program that was managed by Local Initiative Support Corporation, one of the largest nonprofit community development organizations, we selected them because they do a lot of community work and they could reach out into the community and get this work done quickly. So this was focused on community and grassroots organizations, nonprofits, health centers, and school districts as well. We wanted to give funding to organizations that may not traditionally get funding, grassroots organizations that may not even be an official 501c3 that are already doing that kind of work. So as a result, we were able to really embed equity into the entire process. For us, that was really important, to have a process that, again, some of these organizations may have never been exposed to. Grant funding, federal grant funding has its own unique challenges. So LISC worked with a consultant who worked with the community to really establish processes that were understandable and easy for folks to do and still met our federal requirements, all the way from the way the application was designed, outreach was done, and even in the reporting process. We didn't require a lot of narrative and huge reports to be written. A simple photo and stats on how many meals were delivered and where they went to was really all that we needed. So I think as we keep going, we hope that this process gets improved. And as a result, we awarded to 10 grassroots organizations and 4 school districts, focused again on those areas that were most hard hit by COVID. And we delivered in an 8-month period over 5 million meals. About 600,000 of those came from those 10 grassroots organizations. So as you can see, our grassroots organizations really make a big difference. Everything from serving LGBTQ youth to serving our Indigenous community. We had some unusual partnerships with, for example, an organization called Social Spin. They provide free laundering services for those in need. They combined that with a food truck that provided a meal so you could come, get your laundry done, get a great meal, and be on your way. So there were some unusual partnerships that happened as well. We got some good press on this as well. We were featured, one of our organizations, Siwa Patle Collective, was featured on NPR because of their focus on Indigenous products to Indigenous elders and Indigenous families. So really, again, some unusual and innovative practices. One of the great things that came out of all of this work is that we had the opportunity to encourage partnerships amongst organizations between those restaurants and farms. We had some entrepreneurship develop. community connections were deepened or new ones made. And those collaborations between the City of Phoenix and institutions and those community members have continued. We've actually created what we call a food liberation lab, to where we're continuing to talk about how we can not only improve grant processes, but how can we think about different ways to get assistance to those in need, mutual aid strategies, and really doing things a little bit differently. So before we get into the next section, that I really want to share with you what the city is currently doing, and it's a lot that we've got going on, and I'm really excited about it and hoping that you can see the connections throughout the food system. We have one last poll that we want to bring up, if Brett could do that for us. And we really wanted to hear from everyone currently, now that we're supposed to be in recovery, what has your experience been with purchasing food? Have you or someone you know experienced challenges in buying food for you and your family since the pandemic began? Have you, again, you yourself or anyone you know experienced challenges?
Our answers are coming in. We'll just give it another few seconds here. All right.
And I'm not sure how this is going to turn out.
Oh, here we go. This is how it turned out.
Interesting. We had heard earlier, and we've seen it ourselves and heard from all of the organizations working on this. I just heard this recently from one of the food banks that we're working with, is that people who have never even experienced any kind of hunger issues, never worried about where they were getting food, are now having those challenges and don't even know where to go, how to get there. You know, all of those resources are out there. So that doesn't surprise me that we still are seeing people out there in need with food assistance. So I'm going to walk through, and I'm going to go through quickly some of the new programs the City of Phoenix is doing now under the new coronavirus funding that the city has been allocated. And I'm really excited, and I was pleasantly amazed, and I'm also terrified that we have $9.7 million in programs to do over the next year and get that funding out the door, with potential funding over the next couple of years as well. So what we did is really look at programs that help in different categories. Under economic development and innovation, we had $3.4 million given to us. And we're going to continue that Feed Phoenix initiative for the entire year. So it gives us the ability to bring additional restaurants, additional farms, and serve additional organizations so we can get more out there. We're also creating a new worker cooperative incubator. We're in partnership with the private sector and ASU to develop employee-owned food businesses, again, at any sector of the food system. And then lastly, we're doing innovation grants to really encourage existing firms and new firms to come in and really figure out solutions, particularly with our changing climate. And as we all know, water is a subject that we hear about all the time. Our farmers actually here locally do a really great job of water efficiency, and we expect to continue to encourage that and figure out new ways to grow food. So we're also want to focus on local food consumption. We heard during the food action plan preparation and during COVID, lots of folks want to know, hey, I just want to grow food in my own backyard. How can I do that? So we have set up a program to assist up to 100 residents, again, focused in South and West Phoenix. We'll be providing 3 different options for systems to grow in your backyard. And we'll provide the installation, the equipment, and training throughout the entire year to help you really grow produce. And we've also implemented aquaponics, which is growing fish and produce as well. So we're excited to get that started. We have $1 million allocated for farmland preservation. We know that, as all of you may live in the city, a lot of development is occurring because people are moving here, which is pushing out farms. So we need to be able to maintain, again, that resilient food system so that we have access to local food. So we're looking at preserving farmland. We also are looking to encourage our farmers to continue their best practices and provide grant opportunities to install solar shading, to improve drip irrigation systems, we have some farmers who just need funding to put a water tank so that they have it. So we want to be able to provide funding for those kinds of technology. And then under equity and inclusion, we're going to continue the Funds to Feed initiative for the next year. The funding will go again to those grassroots organizations that were part of the program before. We'll be able to expand it. We'll be able to also include the school districts we used before and expand that as well. So excited about that. We're also establishing an urban ag fellowship where we will place high school and college age students with our local food producers for 6 months or a year. And our goal is to, again, grow those new wave of farmers. And we are focusing on 60% of those participants being Black, Indigenous, or people of color. And then we are working with our individual council districts to ensure that they have an opportunity to initiate a specific program or project or provide funding to one of the existing programs in their council district that is most beneficial. So we're excited to see where that takes us. We're continuing to support our food banks and pantries with an emphasis on some of the smaller and more neighborhood pantries that maybe didn't get funding the last go around, but we know are still in need and again are serving in a very hyper-local way. So we'll continue to do that through our Arizona Food Bank Network. And all of this work has to start really quick. So right now, starting next week, we have agreements in place to begin the Feed Phoenix, Funds to Feed, the food banks and pantries, and a new program called Meals at Work, where our convention center caterer is preparing meals and will be delivering them again to organizations in need for about 6 months. So we are able to put people to work and get the food out the door. The additional programs we expect to start in September, October. So look out for the backyard gardens, worker cooperative, all of the grant funding, and we're already starting to work on some potential properties for farmland preservation. So a lot happening, and a lot happening because of all of the networking and work that we did during the Food Action Plan, where we brought all of these folks together. I learned a lot from Shelly. I learned a lot from our community food of practice, from Local First, from our local farmers, from all of the folks involved in our food system, and especially from all of you who are consumers and eaters that are part of that food system as well. So that's what's happening. I'm going to give you my contact information. Certainly, if you want to reach out to us, to me, and let me know if you've got any concerns, any issues, any assistance that you might be able to offer. We want to make sure we get all the information about these programs out as far and wide as possible, because after all, we're doing it for these lovely kids that I see here. This is one of my favorite pictures, because when I think about this work that we're doing it for ourselves currently, but more importantly, we're doing it for all these lovely kids right here. So thank you so much for allowing us to share this with you. And I think now we're going to move to our panel discussion so you can hear from folks who are doing this work every day.
Right before we do that, first, I want to just comment. I love the picture of that little girl with that, what is it, like a collard green or something like that? That is just huge. It's amazing. I love it. Grown here in Phoenix, right?
Yes, it is. It is. And that's right. It is a collard green.
So I have a real quick question about that. And then we have a really important one, but goes along with that. We can grow this in Phoenix. That backyard food production program, where can we get information for that?
So we are just starting to put together the application process and all of the details. So those will roll out in September. Everything is going to be on our website at phoenix.gov. So there is the, and I apologize, we don't have a nice friendly URL, but we're working on it. But everything will be available on our website. And I certainly can share it all with DLA so you can share with your members when it's available.
Please do, and I can
We
add
just
that.
got notice of the funding on July 1st, so we have to work really fast.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And yes, if you share that out Everyone, we do record these and we do put them on our YouTube channel and on our website. So we will add those types of resources to there. But we do have a really important question. So I brought Shelly back to see who to answer it. But Roseanne, I'm going to guess because it's about Phoenix, it might be more towards you. But Dr. Mohammed has asked that, she lives in Levine, and down in that area, as you probably know, there's a lot of farmers, and they're being pushed out. So how is this going to impact the food supply and our ability to do even maybe these programs that you're talking about?
So what we are doing under that farmland preservation initiative is we are working with our local landowners. We're starting to work with our developers as well, so that even as they are doing these new developments, we have the opportunity to incorporate green space and urban farms within those developments. And we're looking for spaces where there are existing farms where we can put conservation easements that make them perpetually in agricultural use. So we are definitely aware of this. Our challenge is we need to work really fast and make that happen. So we're on it. We could always use some help from folks that maybe know of people who are landowners or developers who might be open to these kinds of situations. We would love to hear from them.
Awesome. That could be another action step that our audience and our members can take. Are there any other questions? If you have one, raise your hand. I'll make it so that you can join us in the conversation. All right. Well, we have two of our panelists here today that I'm going to add into the screen now. Let's see here. Oh, if I can ask my panelists to please turn on your video so I can add you to the spotlight. Hi, Michelle.
Hello, how are you today?
Great. Welcome, welcome. And hi, Fatima. Welcome, welcome. Here we are, our wonderful panelists today. And I'm going to pass it back over to Shelly.
Good morning and welcome, Michelle and Fatima. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your business or organization and how your business or organization was affected by the pandemic?
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Michelle Daniels, and I am the chef, owner of All About Food, which is located inside of the American Legion, which is a local veterans organization, nonprofit. And as far as how the pandemic affected our business, it actually, and fortunately, helped us through the collaboration with Local First and the Feed Phoenix initiative. We were able to feed our community through the different programs that you were speaking about. And I'm a native of Arizona as well as South Phoenix. So these dry deserts, food deserts that we talk about, I've lived it through my years of living in this particular area and seeing all of the things that you spoke about with fast food and, different things of that nature. So I think it affected us positively from a business standpoint, negatively from a community standpoint, but fortunately, being able to provide meals for our unsheltered community. That's where my particular focus was, and also being able to stay open during the pandemic, even though our canteen, our membership wasn't able to come in, we were able to stay open and feed our community and also use some of the fresh produce and things that were coming from our local farmers, not only in the collaboration, but also putting it out to the local community here in South Phoenix. So it was a hard and rough time, but it was a gratifying time because we were able to pull together and do some things for our community that were positive.
And my name is Fatima Mohammed, and our organization is Modabe. And so we focus on moms, dads, and babies in terms of perinatal health and support. We do a lot of birth work, doula support, home birth midwifery, a lot of community resource connection. And so the pandemic impacted us positively as well, in that a lot of our families wanted to stay closer to home. We had a greater experience with families wanting to have home birth, and we still went into the homes, with precautions to help with breastfeeding, to support families with food, to support that whole healthcare model, that holistic healthcare model. And so we were awarded funding through this process. We were part of the community of practice, and we're very proud to say that we were awarded funding and learn more about that grant process because we are considered one of those outliers. We're not a nonprofit organization, but we are a community-based organization. We partner with Kareem's Cobbler Shop and Bakery, and so our program allowed Kareem's Cobbler Shop and Bakery focuses on catering and food distribution and working in the schools. So their portion was to supplement the food access to families who, so if their child was in Paideia school, the families that were at home, if there were younger children or grandparents or parents, they supplemented that portion of food with hot meals. And then our portion, we focused on pregnant parenting families. So we also looked at that breastfeeding component, which is not usually highlighted. So we really put a big focus on the breastfeeding portion. We offered plant-based supplements because a lot of our families are low on iron, especially if they're families of color, and plant-based iron is very expensive. We did a lot of breastfeeding equipment. We did a lot of fresh fruit baskets and hot foods. And we really made sure that those different components like lactation was also on board so that we didn't forget about our newborns and those babies in utero to make sure that we're having optimal outcomes.
Wow, you both did really amazing work and benefited so many people in the community. That's really fantastic. What was it that led you to get involved with this, and how did this even come about? And Michelle, we'll just go in the same order. We'll have Michelle,
Okay.
then Fatima.
That sounds good. Thank you very much. Well, my cousin is a pastor, and he called me one day, and he's, when you're a pastor, you're in tune with the community, you're, looking and working. He said, hey, there's an initiative that I think you would be interested in to help the community. He says, you're cooking, you're doing things. So, check out this on the website and see if, you could help. So I filled out the information. It's very simple. And I received an email stating that they wanted me to be a part of the program. I was elated, not only because I was chosen, but I knew I would be able to do some good. And so it actually happened word of mouth. And, I find that sometimes it's hard to get information out to people, whether it is some of these programs that we're speaking about, et cetera. And, and this may be a question that we answer later on through my experience. How do you get that information out to those that can offer help or be of support? And like I said, it was word of mouth last minute from my cousin. And I wouldn't have known anything about it if I hadn't been in that particular loop in the community with him.
Could you just repeat the question?
Yes, how and why did you get involved with either Feed Phoenix or Funds to Feed program?
So I was part of the community of practice. Our organization was part of the community of practice. And in being part of the community of practice, we were able to learn about a lot of these opportunities. We were part of those community voices that came together with the city of Phoenix, and Insight Consulting was an organization that helped to moderate some of these conversations. And what are our needs? What are we experiencing in the community? How are we servicing families? What are our families experiencing? What are we personally experiencing in our own families? And then the conversations just grew. So I know most people know that saying that the people who are closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. So we are closest to the problem and we're closest to the solution. And so it just evolved in that way. Roseanne has been really instrumental in a lot of those meetings and those processes. It allowed us to grow. It allowed us to learn more about the opportunities that are presented, especially in South Phoenix, a lot of the challenges. And then it allowed us to have our voice heard on a lot of different levels. And so it was actually, like you said, knowing people in the community who said, hey, we're working on this, and we know that you're working on that. You are an activator in the community. So we want to utilize your support and your resources and your voice because you have access to people and families and moms and in that perinatal support network. So it was doing the work that we already do in the community and really networking with our community-based members to make sure that we were in those meetings, that our voice was heard, and also to expand and to let our other partners in the community, other friends, other families in the community know about the opportunities that are there.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I know Roseanne has a couple of questions for you both, but before she gets started, I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. It seems that this whole program not only benefited people and that it got food to people who needed it, but it also cultivated more resources and capacity within communities. And that is a fantastic outcome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelly, for setting up my next question, because I would love for our guest speakers to really share with us what were the outcomes of the work that you did in these programs, and also share with us, now that we have additional funding, do we expect you all to participate again, and share with us maybe some ways that you might want to expand the work, given that you've learned some things already. So if you could share, and we'll start with Michelle.
Okay, that's a 3-part question, so I may need to have you go back and repeat a part of it. So I would say, I can answer your last question first. Absolutely. I would love nothing but to continue this program. And the reason why is because it brought the community together, and I was able to interact and collaborate with people, that I had never known, but the meeting of the minds made something really great for our community. And not only just beneficial from, having funding to continue it, which is an amazing thing, because during this time, things are tough, and it enabled to keep people working, which was difficult through the pandemic, as well as being able to incubate thoughts on how we can improve. And what I would like to do is being able to bring some of those programs here in South Phoenix. And I know some of the members at Local First, we had spoke about doing some things, as we move forward and looking at what this program may turn into, because we didn't know, to bring some of these type of things to South Phoenix. And especially because we know, based on your map that you showed, is, desert. And I see it every day. We do have, food banks that, come out and things like that, but it's not consistent enough to provide what the community really needs. I think I missed one portion of your question. The second question.
Yeah, so just wondered how your organization was affected. Did it improve? Are there additional resources? Are you growing? And I think you answered that a little bit, but is there anything you see that has changed as a result?
Changed in the eating habits of the community, because I was able to introduce the community to local produce, to fresh produce, that things that are good for you, versus the fast food or something that is fried, and being able to turn that into something that looks and tastes good. So being able to have access to a plentiful amount of fresh produce, turnips, beets, parsnips, just things that normally in our community you would not eat. So being able to say, hey, try this, or put it in a salad, or sneak it into something else, it made people go, hey, what was that you put in that dish the other day? And so they had the opportunity to be exposed to food that they had never eaten before, maybe seen in a grocery store at one time, but go, I wouldn't eat that, because it's not a part of the culture. So being able to familiarize things to others make it familiar, but it's not familiar. Does that make sense? So it helped our business in that respect because I was able to educate. And I guess that would answer partially that question. And again, it kept people working. It kept people connected. Food is a connector. So it kept our community connected by being able to participate in this program. And it also brought out folks that wanted to assist and support. So it brought out love and goodness. So that's it. That's it. So yeah, definitely would do it anytime I was asked or the opportunity was available, whether it was funding or not, whatever it is. I think we've started a great thing and it needs to continue. So thank you very much for having me a part of the panel today and the programs that are hopefully coming about.
Thank you, Chef Michelle. I love to hear that. I always say food is love, and you are
Yes.
so right. And I'm excited that people are trying new and different things and eating healthier. That's amazing. It's always possible to do. So
Yes.
Fatima, let's hear from you how your organization has been affected by the program and maybe share what you expect to be doing as the new program rolls out.
So we have been affected positively in so many ways. It's created new opportunities. We've developed greater partnerships. Our visibility has increased in the community. And it's also allowed us to leverage more support in different ways. And then also to support our fellow community to be able to know about these resources that are available and to build greater partnerships. So one thing, as we're growing and expanding, we started partnering with Maggie's Place, one of the women's shelters, to make sure that we're making sure that we're touching as many women as we can in different ways. And so it's really a process that has been a lot of growth, a lot of professional development, a lot of planning and forward thinking, and it can be really challenging, but in a good way, meaning we've already been in the community doing the work, but what COVID did was it created a challenge that allowed our voice to be heard, where we were already saying that there was this problem and this challenge in the community. So because COVID came, it allowed people to slow down and to hear our voice louder, because these experiences were experiences that our community was already dealing with. And so it allowed those on the margins to come more towards the center and to allow our voice to be heard, so that the resources, the opportunities were centered more for those who were already experiencing those problems. So COVID just exacerbated it. And then we jumped on the opportunity to make sure that we can continue to do the work that we've already been doing. We just were able to get more creative because there was an opportunity to have more resources to be able to do what we're already doing at a higher level. So yes, we will participate again. Yes, we are expanding, and we love the opportunity to be able to expand. And we're growing as well. And in that, they're still kind of flying under that radar, where we have to continue to do all of the pieces, but we don't necessarily always have the staff or all the different planning pieces, because we are so community-based that sometimes we're working with a small amount of people to get a lot of things done. And especially when we're doing maternal child health work, we're going to births, we're training people, like I said, we're in Maggie's Place, we're doing so many different things. And so there is a great need to be able to sustain positions, so that when we're talking about food and we're building that, in the back of our minds, we're not thinking about, well, are we going to be able to eat today too? Can we pay our bills today too? Can our children have, that quality food too? Because our hearts are so big in that component. And so with this next wave of funding, we do want to expand. There was a great need that was highlighted from one of our moms who was on WIC, receiving WIC. And there were challenges in moms being able to access, if they were not breastfeeding, access formula. And having to go to so many different areas and having maybe subsequent children or twins. And so if they didn't have a car, if they didn't have the transportation, how were they able to get all of their formula? And so that was a huge problem. So that's one of the things that we want to address coming up in this new funding cycle is we focused on breastfeeding last time. We want to build that in for moms who also are not breastfeeding to make sure that they can have access to those resources, and then really tease things out and listening to our families and what the needs are so we can build a greater program moving forward.
Nice.
Thank you. I'm really applauding these women because they are doing such great work. And I'm glad we are able to bring them to you to have them highlight the work that they're doing that maybe you never even heard about. So we have an opportunity now, and I'd love for both of our speakers to share with this audience, what can those attending this workshop today do to help your organization directly? What is it that you need? Don't be shy. If you don't ask, you might not guess, but if you ask, somebody might be out there that can provide it. So I'd love for you all to share with us what you need, what help you need. So we'll start with Chef Michelle.
Thank you. Well, I would say hands on deck. It's an easy task, but a difficult task when you are trying to prepare 200 to 300 meals 2 or 3 times in a week, and just having volunteers to assist or having a resource where you could call and say, put on a list, a volunteer list, because I know I'm not the only one that possibly have had those challenges, just having enough hands to get the food prepared in a certain amount of time, make sure it gets out on time, and also delivered to those that need it. So having enough volunteers or how to find those resources for volunteers. The other, of course, is having access, or is there a center place where you can go to find access to some of these programs so that we can assist in spreading the word, like Miss Fatima's program. I had never heard of what you do until just now. So being able to have a center place, or is there a directory, or is there somewhere where it's centered, because everything is spread out. So you may go to this website to find this, you may go over here to find this, but is there a center where one could go to find this information? So if I had a mom come to me, I would know how to give that information. I wouldn't have to go on websites or call this person to do that. I can go directly to it and go, here's what you need. And I'm sure it may be out there, I'm just not aware of it. The other, as far as those that are on the panel, just continue to support the way you have, continue to improve and help us have forward thinking, because if we're all not working and thinking together and to make that change and presenting those ideas collaboratively, like in this space, we're not going to move anywhere. So I'm grateful for this space and for the Diversity Alliance enabling me to be here today. And again, thank you all.
Thank you. Fatima?
I'd like to echo what Chef Michelle Daniels. I heard Beverly, and then I heard Michelle Daniels. So
no, you're correct.
Okay. I want to say that I want to express so much gratitude for the opportunity to be here first, because there's not a lot of women who are on panels in our community that are sharing this information and this work. So I also didn't know the work that you were doing. And so it's almost like we're in a vacuum. And when we come together, we're greater in numbers. So I wanted to make sure that that was highlighted first. And I shared my gratitude and shared my respect and my thanks. I have a laundry list of needs. We need interns. Because I really believe in reinvesting in the community. And so our youth are our next leaders. And so if we have youth out there who want to come and learn some of this work and work with us. We would love interns. We also love volunteers. I think interns can take this to the next level, especially if they're already in some type of system and that's the direction that they're going in maternal. I say maternal, paternal, and child health because a lot of times we leave that father dynamic out. We need more resources for sustained positions. So we do the work with the resources that we have, but unfortunately, we do not have funding or have not had the funding in the past, because we will now, to have sustained positions to offer programming to make sure that we are secure in the ability to do the work and to make it sustainable for a long time in the future, generations to come. We need a sustainable location. So we, a couple years ago, we had an office, and to take overhead down, everything happens out of my house or in the birth, the clinic that I work in, or we go into the community and use different spaces in the community. And that's amazing. But we don't have a specific location to be able to do the work and have a hub where people can come to us if you don't know, or where we can have a central location where all of us can be that hub and people know that this is where the community is and this is where the resources are. We also would like more access to some of the data and the data collection, especially around food, and so that we can interpret that data and be able to build programs to troubleshoot the needs in the community. And for our allies and our stakeholders, we move at the speed of trust, and in moving at the speed of trust, we have to build those relationships. So in working with Roseanne, we took time in those community practices to get to know who she was, to learn about her heart, her passion, her positionality. And also she learned about us and our heart, our passion, our positionality. And then how can we troubleshoot some of those needs? What is it looking like in our community? What is it looking like in our own families? How do we show up as, in our own skins and whatever those titles are, people of color, moms, birth workers, or City of Phoenix officials, or chefs, or whatever the case may be, so that we can go back into the community and everybody else can say, oh, this is how I show up as well, and how can we come together? So we need to come together with our allies and our stakeholders to find out where our strengths are and where our power dynamics are, so that we can uplift the community and move forward. We need to have more productive conversations, because all this started out as a conversation, but it didn't end as a conversation. It ended as actionable items to get a result. And I commend once again Roseanne and Joe Latios and Lola Levis, all of these, Dr. Mohammed, who's on the line, coming together in a community and having these conversations, and then saying, okay, this is what we can do, this is how we can move forward. And then we put our energy in that intention, and we had these great outcomes. We need social enterprises. So if I could highlight two things, one would be a social enterprise in our community that is a hub for some of this food work. And it could look like a co-op grocery store. It could look like a restaurant. There's those big salad and goes, a real salad and go, not like a little, not a little vending salad and go, right, but a real salad and go, because that way we can do a lot of layering of work. One, create jobs, build resources, sustain it, teach skills. We can also grow. And so it can create this own sustainable organism that keeps growing and thriving. And then it builds on that foundation of mutual aid. So it's a hand up, we're working together, we're building, we're growing, and we're showing that to our future generations as well. And then also just taking a look at our past and our future. So the position of our elders and the position of our youth. So we also cannot move faster than them. Our elders have that wisdom and our youth are the future. So how are we also building them into programs? So we need to be able to have the resources to support them and to support what they say their needs are, so then we can translate that into programming and resources and support that nourish them on all different levels. And food is that physical action of eating and nourishing our bodies and our brains and our minds and our spirits. but food is also how are you loved, how are you nurtured, and how are you embraced. And so those are the layers that this work has allowed us to do. It's more than just eating, it's more than just nourishing our body, it's growing. And in planting that seed, we're planting those seeds to grow healthy babies, we're planting those seeds to improve our minds, we're planting those seeds to grow our community so that we can elevate our consciousness.
Thank you both. That is a tall order, but I'm confident that the members of this organization can meet those needs. So let's do our last slide, and we really want to share not only the ways that you've heard now, but some other ways that you can support this work. We've already heard from our speakers about volunteering. You know, and it's more than just going to the food bank. It's really learn who your organizations are working in your neighborhood, in your city. Volunteer at community gardens, at small urban farms. We were unable to hear from Dionne Washington with Project Roots today, who is one of our local farmers. She actually is being affected right now and being displaced from one of the current locations that she's farming at. So I know she's having a challenging time and looking for land. Spend your dollars locally, buy local. There's great product right here in our backyard, right here in South Phoenix and West Phoenix and the Levine area, not only produce, but we've got dairy and eggs as well. Be curious, really find out, you know, ask about, you know, where does your favorite restaurant get its produce? Do they buy local? You know, understand the experience of others and give wisely. You know, really support organizations that are helping people living right here in our area. You know, I appreciate that we provide dollars for folks in other countries and other locations, but let's start with supporting people living right here. And then one thing that we would love at our institutional level is to support and advocate for equitable food policies. In Phoenix, we're the first city in the county that's really taking food policies to another level. Not other cities are doing that, and maybe they should be. You know, so voice your opinion to your council members, to your state legislature at the federal level. Let folks know that this issue is important. So thank you all again. Thank you to our guest speakers. Thank you, Shelly. We appreciate it.
All right, wonderful. And everyone, if you'll please stay, we have a couple of questions. Chef Michelle, I'm going to go to you first really fast. People are asking for your link to volunteer. So if you have that available, can you throw that in the chat? If not, you can email that to me and I'll make sure it also gets where we need it to, you know, on our website and everything like that.
Okay,
So
great. I will put that in the chat now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And let's see, we also had a question. Ooh, I lost it, hold on. A comment, it starts off with Michelle and Fatima. It's wonderful to see African-American women presenting and sharing their lived experiences and providing your nuggets of wisdom. So thank you for that. Really quickly, because we're getting down to the wire here, you know, just a couple sentences. Fatima, I'll go to you first. What has been your most consistent challenge? And what one step are you taking to minimize it?
Most consistent challenge is being able to meet all the needs. And then one step is just continuing to do the work, then networking with the right people and continuing to show up for the work.
Awesome, thank you. And Chef Michelle.
Gaining buy-in tends to be my challenge. I am part of a veterans organization, and our main focus here is to make sure that our veterans and our families are supported, which are a part of the community. Sometimes it's just really hard to get people to understand and really see the disparity that exists in our community, because I think Fatima said it really eloquently, as far as there's the outlayers and then there's the center. So a lot of people see things from their outlayer, but tend to forget and to look inward to see the center piece of it. So just gaining buy-in and getting people to see the importance of supporting local, the importance of investing back into your community, the importance of volunteering your time. Our organization is built on volunteerism, but those outside of our organization, sometimes it's very hard for them to see the benefit in doing that. So just really staying on my pedestal and not necessarily preaching, but educating as to why it's important for us to build a community that be better for all of us. And we find those roadblocks a lot with our own people of color, because, you know, there's trust issues, there's, you know, for lack of a better word, people, they don't have time, but we have time for everything else. So just really instilling and educating as to why these things are important and trying to change paradigms and mindsets has been my biggest challenge. And how I overcome that, and I think I mentioned it, I just stay on my pedestal. I continue to stay positive and educate and continue to be that example. And hopefully people will see that light and see how it is beneficial, not only to them, but to the community, to our future. As Fatima mentioned, our elders and how important they are in our future. So I just keep, like she said, doing the work, and it won't stop until, you know, God decides it's time for me to do so. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you, thank you. And I'm gonna bring in a spotlight, the wonderful woman who's been with DLA for a very, very long time, a lifelong DLA award winner, and the person who has been spearheading this talk, Betty Thompson. I know you wanted to make a comment and maybe have a question. So Betty, you're muted, Betty. It's an official Zoom meeting, everybody. We had our first, you're muted.
First of all, I'd like to just thank everyone for participation today. I enjoyed working with Shelly and Roseanne in getting this set up. And our panelists, Michelle, Chef Daniels, and Fatima, thank you so much, because I learned about 2 new programs today. And there were some catchwords that we heard today. We heard food apartheid and we heard food desert. And so when you leave this DLA session today, you're going to hear some other terms, and I'd like to just name them for you. So when you hear them, maybe you will stop, sort of digest, listen to that documentary or whatever that program is, or that article that have terms such as food access, food justice, racial equity in the food system, food equity, food sovereignty, National Farm to School, which is something that's there in schools. Your kids may come home and talk about farm to school or farm to garden or farm to ECE, which is early childhood. Food insecurity. These are all talking about the same subject from different aspects. And there was a whole list of things. What can I do? Well, first of all, to be informed, do your research, talk to people in your community, talk to your fellow people that you work with. What have you heard about this? Did you know this? And these are just becoming more informative, will help you to figure out what you can do to help these ladies, help our cities, our communities, and be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Betty, for all that you do and for sharing those words with us. And now I'm going to ask Anne had a question, so I'm going to add her in. We're going to make her join us. Anne, welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for including me. I actually have 2 questions. I hope that's okay.
All right, we'll give you 2.
Okay. This Healthy Food for All initiative is just beyond belief beautiful. And I'm a dietitian, so food is in my heart every moment of my waking and sleeping life. I'm curious if this initiative is being shared as a model for other communities inside and outside of Arizona.
Thank you, Anne. It is. We're sharing the information that the city is doing within the county because, again, it's part of our local system. But we're also, as a result of the work that we did with the coronavirus funding, we've been able to share it nationally. So we were amazed that there weren't other cities that were doing these kinds of things. I think there was a little bit of hesitancy at the beginning that the funding could only be used to food banks and only in certain ways. And we are fortunate in that we have a city manager and finance director and budget folks that think creatively. And so we were able to initiate these programs. So yes, we are, and we are always open to talking about them and getting more people involved.
Great. Thank you. My second comment or question would be, I absolutely was fascinated and love hearing Chef Michelle's story about promoting local and fresh produce in these efforts, and Ms. Fatima's stories of how she works with the stakeholders. I mean, it's all so inspiring. What I was wondering on how it relates to it is, during the height of the pandemic, if this was possible, how was the community approached for their input with respect to what they identified as their needs?
I'm going to let Fatima talk about that because she had the opportunity to provide that input.
We did a lot of different things. So we talked about the community of practice and how we are of and from the community, and we talked about our experiences. So there were several members from community of practice. We shared information at lots of local community meetings. And then in our own respective work, we, whoever we touch in our community through our work, we shared that information as well. And then we shared the experience and gleaned feedback from the community that we serve in terms of what some of the needs were and what some of the challenges were, so we could address those needs and challenges.
I think being able to make any connection during the worst parts of our pandemic is really something. Thank you, Fatima.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Anne, for joining us. We had just one other comment from Philippa in our Q&A, and she wants to thank both of you, Fatima and Michelle, for all the work that you're doing to empower our communities. And she said that Insight Consultants is an amazing resource in our community. And she's proud to know the amazing representatives of Insight and all their hard work to make and shift change. So thank you, all of you that joined us today, Fatima, Michelle, Roseanne, and Shelly. And just for really fast, I'm just going to actually ask Shelly and Roseanne for a quick, 30-second final parting, and then we will head back over to Reed to share some other great news about DLA. So Shelly, you can go first.
So I think what I just want to say is I hope that a couple of the misunderstandings about deserts and food deserts are, we can put some of those to rest. And along with the ones I already mentioned, the idea of scarcity, what Roseanne said highlights that scarcity is not really the issue in our food system. The reason people don't have food is distribution. Roseanne talked about how farmers have product they can't get out. That is not scarcity, there's an abundance, and we need to redistribute and reallocate those resources. And one of the things I want to highlight is there's a rights issue. And we have to get over the idea of thinking that people need to be able to pay for food. We need to start to understand that people have a right to food.
Yeah, food, right.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Shelly. You said it exactly. We are just really happy at the City of Phoenix that we've had this opportunity to put these programs into place and continue to work with all of you. I just ask that as we keep moving forward, we just touched the tip of the iceberg on this issue of food systems. We'd love to be able to continue to engage you, whether it's as this group or individually. There's a lot of work to be done, as you heard from our two guest speakers, a lot of great work being done. And we just want you to continue to be engaged. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And Reed.
Well, thanks again to everyone for joining our discussion today. Hang on just a little bit longer. We've got some important announcements. I think relating this back to our uncomfortable conversations about social justice, we don't often think about the intersection of these issues with things like systemic racism and how diversity can be impacted by something so basic as food security or insecurity, and food deserts. So I hope you take that back to your workplaces, take that back to your tables of influence, and think about, social justice from both a basic level and how it interplays with other forms of racism and discrimination. So thank you again for everyone for being here. The work we do at DLA is not possible without contributions from volunteers, sponsors, and my fellow board of directors. So I wanted to give some recognition to a few key people: our executive director, Joanna Deshay, our DLA board of directors for their continued guidance and leadership for the past 20 years in the Valley. We're not the Valley's best kept secret anymore, so keep on getting the word out. We're leading the charge. Thank you to our DLA Education Committee, who are responsible for planning these monthly workshops. A very special thank you to the Education Committee member, Betty Thompson, who is a longtime DLA veteran. She's the one responsible for driving today's topic on food equity and all the content you saw. And a special thanks to Dr. Brent Scholar, who is responsible for the technical aspects of these webinars. We would also like to thank our amazing sponsors to help us underwrite these programs, just like this session today. So thank you to Tegna Foundation or Channel 12 for awarding DLA with a 2021 programming grant to help with this work. Thank you to Emily Mowers, Carrie Watts, and the amazing team, Tram Mai, for moderating some sessions along that we've had throughout this series of uncomfortable conversations. Thank you to Mayo Clinic and everyone in their In Fund for Change grant that supports this uncomfortable conversation series. And special shout out to Black Philanthropy Initiatives grant, the grant fund there, and Miss Kim Covington of the Arizona Community Foundation. Exciting announcement, our 2021 conference is quickly approaching. I am one of the co-chairs. I've been a co-chair for 3 years. And my colleague Tiki Carmichael from USAA, I don't believe she's on the call with us today, but she will be co-chair for this year's conference. It's going to be a little bit of a hybrid. We're going to have an award night gala and some in-person opportunities and some virtual opportunities this year. So the awards are going to be kicking off. Brent, do you just want to quickly mention the awards portion of this year's conference?
Quickly mention, sure. All right, folks. So here's what's nice. We are excited about this year's conference, like Reed said, and I want to share with you, for the first time, you are the first to know that the DLA and SHRM Awards are here and officially open for nominations. As DLA is celebrating its 20th year, we are asking and looking for awesome nominations, and lots of them. I have a committee ready to look at your award nominations, and I want to work them hard. We have categories such as diverse leader, diversity youth leader, and then our inclusive workplace, which we have small, medium, and large available to win, and an inclusive nonprofit workplace. I dropped a link for our main website, which has a link right there to nominate. It is live today. Do not wait. Please get in there now. All right. Also, I'm going to share that we're not done yet, right? We have August coming up. And in August, we're going to be doing a very important conversation called Wired Differently, Embracing Neurodiversity in the Workplace. That's going to be on August 19th. And also in the chat, we have our registration link there. And you can also find the event on Facebook. And wow, I have another one. If you love and enjoyed what we've been doing today, this workshop content, please consider supporting Diversity Leadership Alliance further by making a $20 donation or more if you're able, in order to celebrate the 20th anniversary year. Your donations help us continue these vital dialogues and also helps keep workshops and content like this complementary to the community. I have just placed, once again, another link in the chat area. There you can do that online. DLA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and your donations may be taxable. Please consult your tax advisor. And
Excellent. Thank you, Brent. Thanks for the shout out about the awards that are now open leading up to conference. Conference will be in November. We're going to start planning. If you're part of that planning committee, look for information soon and be ready to sign up and get ready for November. Another special thank you to our amazing presenters and panelists today. We're humbled by your expertise, contribution to community, and all the stories that bring these topics to life. Thanks to all of our attendees to take your time, your attention today, your critical thinking, and hopefully your action after this panel. We do not take you for granted at all. Please take care of each other. Enjoy the rest of your day and your week. And to play us out, we've got our friend Bruce Kirkwood on the violin with some original music. He's our intro and outro to all of our webinars, our friend from Biloxi, Mississippi. Bruce, take care.